This is Your Own Best Company, a podcast for people who love to work alone. Hi there, everybody. This is Franklin Taggart, and you're listening to Your Own Best Company. This is a podcast for people who love working alone. Now, this isn't for people who are antisocial or shy necessarily. It's for people who actually just value solitude on the same level as they value revenue in their business. And I am one of you, and you are one of me. The person that we're going to be meeting today, Lori Robertson, very interesting story. And the first story that I'm going to tell on Lori is that Lori and I have only ever met on LinkedIn. And I'm not even sure who introduced us. Do you recall?
Through gym networking.
Oh, that's right. So we initially made contact through the networking mixer, and then we found each other on LinkedIn. And our only conversations until today have been LinkedIn messages, right? So let's talk about the power of social media, shall we? But I was really excited as I learned more about Lori's history and her story. I really feel like that she's got a lot to offer to us here today. For 20 years, she's created impactful experiences and messages through the world of live and virtual events. She spent 10 years producing Women of Faith, a 2-day event that toured 28 to 30 cities each year with attendance of over 14,000 at these events at its peak. Through that experience, she saw firsthand the transformative power of words and stories to teach, influence, and inspire. And today she speaks to groups of leaders about effective communication, the power of storytelling to influence and inspire, as well as providing one-on-one coaching for professional women looking to level up their visibility and impact through sharing their message on traditional and virtual stages. She lives in the heart of the Ozarks. Beautiful place, along with her husband and son and 2 dogs, a cat, and 5 Jeeps. Wow. Lori Robertson, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here today. We've got a lot to talk about. I'd like to start with a little bit of information, though, about you were with a pretty significantly well-known organization in the faith-based world, Women of Faith. Can you talk a little bit about how did that even happen?
Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all, Franklin, for having me. I'm so excited to visit with you today, especially I know we do have a little overlap in our background, which makes a conversation like this even more fun. But so my path to Women of Faith was kind of an interesting one. I had done my bachelor's degree thinking I wanted to work in healthcare. And like so many people, I went through an entire program, got my first job, and 20 minutes in thought, well, this really stinks. And so I went back to school to get my MBA. And the final semester of grad school, I had an opportunity to do an internship with a publisher called Thomas Nelson. And at the time, Thomas Nelson was the largest Christian publisher in the US and the largest publisher of Bibles worldwide. And they had a little live events division called Women of Faith, this group of about 70, mostly young women in Dallas who were touring the country, doing these large scale events that were truly changing millions of lives. And I still remember walking in, I'm not sure I was hired yet. And I had the opportunity to go to my first Women of Faith event in the American Airlines Center in Dallas. And the events were always in the round. And so there were over 18,000 women in the room to the top row of the 3rd tier. And I grew up in a tiny town of 10,000 in Oklahoma. My biggest event experience before that was a Def Leppard concert in Oklahoma City, which was, a huge deal at the time. And I walked into this room and there were over 18,000 women singing together, laughing together, learning together, and feeling that they weren't alone. Whatever battle they were facing, whatever they carried in, just the experience of being together encouraged them, inspired them, and refreshed and renewed them in a way that they kept coming back year after year and bringing their friends. And so I remember walking in and thinking, I want to spend the rest of my life creating experiences like this for as many people as I can. And so in all the years since, to one degree or another, I have been involved in creating live and virtual event experiences. But a few years ago, I really shifted my gaze a little, or maybe broadened my gaze to think more about the person on the platform and what a gift it is to step in front of a group of 10 people or 10,000 people and share something of value out of your own experience, what you've learned and earned along the way, filtered through the perspective that's uniquely yours. And it doesn't just help everyone in the room, but it's a gift to the speaker to step into their unique purpose in that way. And so I just have kind of had this fire lit inside me to help more people, more leaders, especially more women, recognize that gift inside them and package it up in a way that creates impact, and they are excited and confident to walk into and share. So that's kind of how I went from there to here.
Well, that's awesome. That's amazing. Some of my listeners will remember my references to Thomas Nelson when I talked about Michael Hyatt in past episodes. Was he the president there when you were there?
He absolutely was. Yeah, I've spent many hours in rooms with Mike Hyatt. And in fact, I had the opportunity to do a speaking workshop before I was asked to MC the Women of Faith events with no public speaking experience. And so, bless my heart. And I had the opportunity to go to an event at the time. It was called Dynamic Speakers Workshop, led by Ken Davis.
Yeah.
Now, Michael Hyatt partners with him, and they have the SCORE workshop. But at the time I went, Mike and Gail Hyatt were students also. They were in the same workshop I was in. Yeah. And so it was a fabulous experience. And one of the things I remember, I was in one of the small groups with Gail, Mike's wife, and we had to do these little 5-minute messages, apply what you learned and share with the group. And she shared this principle that someone had told her along the way of wait to worry.
Yeah.
What if we just wait to worry? Just give it a minute and see what happens before, freaking ourselves all out internally. And it's something I've never forgotten. And that was from that little workshop experience with Gail and Michael Hyatt.
What a wonderful message, right? Let's get back to the idea that you just expressed about gifts, because that's a real central theme to the work that I do with people. And you're highlighting that when you're sharing your gift, that you are as blessed by that exchange as the person who's receiving. Can you talk a little bit about? Can you describe any of your early experiences of that you had that really strike you?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When I started emceeing those Women of Faith events, my boss, Mary Graham, who's one of the most masterful connectors and just natural storytellers, so warm. She's the only person I'd ever seen do it. And so I was both so aware that I had almost nothing to bring to the table and aware of these enormous shoes to fill. But I wanted to play a better role, a bigger role in these events that I knew were so amazing and life-changing. And first I had to dig in and figure out how to deal with the physical symptoms of the fear. My feet were so sweaty. I had to wear shoes I could slip off so I could dry them on the carpet really quick before I went up on the stage.
Yeah.
So I learned to manage that, and then manage those doubts that tell you there's got to be somebody better to do this. Who are you to do this? What if you screw it up? But then I really wanted to lean in and cultivate confidence, because I knew the better time I had as the host of the party, the better time everyone in the room could have. And I have never gotten over the feeling of going up on a stage and standing in front of people and just loving on them and encouraging them and seeing them and inviting them in to an experience that encourages and gives them hope and new perspective. And it was a it was almost like a buzzing I can feel in my spirit
Yeah,
when
exactly.
you step into your sweet spot.
Yeah.
And whether that's you're a baseball player or you're a baker or you're a coach or you're a speaker, I just want everyone in the world to feel that buzzing in your spirit when
Yeah.
you are giving out of exactly who you are, and it helps everyone around you. I mean, truly, what a gift. What a 360-degree gift.
I'm curious. One of the things that I propose is that our gift and our talents are somewhat different from each other. That our gift is something that actually is kind of a difference that is made for the people in the room, and the talent is the conduit through which that gift is delivered. And I'm curious for you. You talk about that being up on stage and loving on that crowd is one of the ways that the gift came through. But are there other places in your life that you see your gift come through, maybe through other talents that you have?
Sure, absolutely. I think I have a gift of encouragement,
Yeah.
and I like to think at least that I sprinkle that gift on my family, on my friends, on everyone I come into contact with. My goal is to see something in you that you need seen and call it out and encourage it, because we all do have those gifts that make us different from someone else and allow us to bring something new and different and needed to the table that helps everyone in the room.
Yeah.
But sometimes what you need most is for someone else to see that in you and call it out. And then all of a sudden you think, you know what? I am good at that. You
Yeah.
know what? I should use that more. And when you use that more, it encourages all the rest of us.
Yeah. I'm also curious with the people that you work with as a coach and some of the groups that you work with. Um, do you ever find that they really feel like that they don't have anything special to share, but maybe that's just because their gift is so normal to them or so ordinary to them that they don't see why it's unique and why it's meaningful and why it should be shared? Are those the kinds of things that you see in some of your people?
100%. I had a chemistry professor in college that I remember saying, common sense is what you know.
Yeah.
And don't we all sort of have that tendency to just expect that everyone in the room knows what we know and that what we're good at is really nothing special. It's just who you are.
Yeah.
But the fact is, we all have something different to bring to the table. And my coaching really is focused specifically on women. And I've found women to be pretty it's pretty normal to undervalue what you bring to the table, to
Yeah.
undervalue the gift you have, the perspective you have, the talents you have, to feel like there's nothing all that special about it.
Yeah.
And so many women will say no thank you to the opportunity to give a keynote or speak on a panel or do a media appearance. And I'm sure this is so true of men as well. I'm just focused on coaching women.
Yeah.
But I always say your story is your authority.
Yeah.
You're not saying I'm the one best only expert in leadership, communication, coaching, whatever your topic is. You're coming to the table saying, this is my experience.
Yeah.
This is what I experienced. This is what I learned that might be helpful to you too for the challenge you're facing. And doesn't that feel lighter? Doesn't that feel like something you think, oh, okay, well, I could share that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be this big production. It just is the
Right.
story.
Yeah.
That also
It
kind
is
of
the story.
gives us our natural segue into what we had kind of talked about as a topic for us to cover today. And that is to help people tell a better story. Let's get into that, shall we?
Absolutely. So storytelling is my jam. And if I've heard it said that if you're a hammer, every problem is a nail. And if you're a storyteller, the answer to everything is tell a story.
Yeah.
And I love working with organizations and with individuals to help them tell a better story, whether it is crafting the founder story, the values story that connects the team, the customer facing story that brings customers and clients to you. The fact is, scientifically, it's proven that we are wired for story. And in fact, the science of it is super fascinating, that the hormones that drive our everyday living are active in that process of drawing us into story. The shot of cortisol that you get if your brain senses a risk or a threat in your environment is the same shot of cortisol you get when you get drawn into the surprise or the challenge or the conflict of a story. Yeah. And then that dopamine that rewards us for sticking with the unfolding of a story is the same thing we're after when we stay up past our bedtime to watch one more episode or read one more chapter. Yeah. But the game changer is oxytocin, which is known as a pro-social hormone, and it fosters trust and connection and cooperation. And the more we engage emotionally with the story, our oxytocin level goes up. And researchers have found that as our oxytocin level rises, also our likelihood to take action in response to a story goes up as well. That's why, we are so drawn by stories that encourage us to donate, to participate, to see perspective differently. It's that emotion that makes us more likely to act in the moment, but also more likely to act in the long term. So as a leader, as a speaker, as a communicator, story really is the most compelling communication vehicle we have to teach and lead and inspire the people who want to learn from us, the people who want to follow us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, story's been around longer than probably any other kind of human communication, right?
Yeah.
So it's built into the wiring. And
it is.
I was talking with some friends recently about my favorite childhood memories. And one of them was every night my mom would tell us stories or read stories from books as we were going to bed. And that, to me, was really a linchpin experience as a child, that I can say that it has benefited every day of my life since that time, right? And I think the part of it, the part of it that I recall is that sense of closeness that I had with my sisters and my mom during that time, and the depth of the empathy that we felt for each other in those moments weren't experienced anywhere else in our lives. Right. But the story was so powerful, and the experience of sharing the story together was such a bond,
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about when you are starting to think about a story that you want to share with people, where are the initial sparks coming from for you?
I do think one of the biggest challenges for people who are sort of new to the idea of leaning into story, either third-person stories or personal stories, to lead and inspire. At first you think, I don't have any stories, or what stories would I tell? But like so much in life, when you tune your brain to start thinking about it, we experience stories worth sharing every day. It's just a matter of dialing in and watching for experiences that you can use to illustrate concepts, to bring principles to life. And it's just, sometimes we think you need an enormous like get you on the news kind of story. Like you've climbed a mountain, you've won the Super Bowl. But the thing about those stories are, yes, they are remarkable, but you have to share stories that are both remarkable and relatable to really connect with your audience. If you've ever gone to Sunday school or grew up in church or visited church as a child, we know that Jesus taught in parables, and I'm sure we've all heard the definition of a parable as an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. It is relatable, everyday story, but that connects to a universal overarching principle. And it's those same kinds of stories that are the stories worth sharing. If you climbed a mountain, that is awesome. And we are interested in that story. But if you can tell how your life was changed through the insight you found in that process, now I can relate to that. And you can relate to that when you sure as heck aren't going to see me on the side of a big mountain people climb.
One of the things that I've really been interested to see is that there are a lot of people that don't think that they have a valuable story to tell.
Right.
But one of the things that I always have to remind them is that the most personal things that you've experienced are actually pretty universal. And so a lot of times when you start to tell a story and you start to feel, oh, this is feeling a little bit more vulnerable and personal than I need to feel right now. A lot of times that's actually when you're just starting to touch on a universal principle or a universal experience or a thing that makes us uniquely human, you know?
Right.
And as you were talking there, that kind of came to my mind. It's like, sometimes we just have this question about, well, what do I have to offer here? Well, the thing that you're offering through your story is a legitimate, genuine, authentic human connection.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
that can come from even some of the most mundane stories, you know?
Absolutely. Well, and those mundane stories are relatable. Everyday life is relatable. And my favorite story to tell right now that I use to open most of my keynotes, and I'm praying that I get another great one by the time I've worn this one all the way out. But it's about a day I went to the library and something I experienced and most everybody we know has been to a library. Most everybody we know understands what that's like and what you see there and how it smells and how it sounds. And so there is nothing remarkable about the experience except A, it's really funny, and B, I pull principles typically about perspective out of that story to lead into a greater message on perspective, on leadership, on how we can help one another shift our thinking.
Do you want to tell the library story?
I would love to, if you don't mind. It
I don't
really is
mind
pretty,
at all. Yeah, you've
pretty
set
fun.
it up.
So
Let's tear it down.
so the context you need to know is that 15 years ago, I was legally blind. At least that's what my eye doctor said. And I don't think they're supposed to joke about stuff like that. But
No, not usually.
I do know that you're right. I do know that I started wearing contacts glasses in the third grade, then contacts in the fifth grade. And every year my parents would take me to get my eyes checked before school started. And every year I got more and more nearsighted until I was in my early 20s. And my eye doctor said I met the criteria for legal blindness. And so I was super excited to make an appointment to have LASIK. And so everything was going to change for me. But if you've ever had LASIK surgery, you know that for 3 weeks leading up to the surgery, I couldn't wear my contacts. I had to wear my glasses, which for lots of people, that doesn't seem like a big deal. But for me, with that kind of prescription, I couldn't spend enough money at the eye doctor for enough bells and whistles to have glasses that were thin and light and cute. I could spend all the money, and I got glasses that, as my sister lovingly referred to them, were birth control glasses. And so,
thank you, sis.
and you'd spend yes, thank you. And you would spend a fortune for these glasses that were unattractive, to say the least. And so I never bought new glasses. So for these few weeks leading up to LASIK, I was wearing glasses that weren't just ugly. They were several prescriptions old, but it's for the best cause ever. So I just wore those glasses. And I was wearing them one day. I'd been to the gym and I was running a few errands on my way home. And one of them took me by the library. And as I walked in to the library, to the left in my peripheral vision, I saw a man standing there, standing tall, and he was staring right at me. And I'd been to the gym and I was feeling pretty decent. I had a good workout. I was wearing a cute little workout outfit. And I thought, he is totally checking me out. And so I had a little pep in my step and I headed back to the shelves to pick a few books. And as I came back toward the checkout counter, it led me back toward the man. And as soon as I cleared the shelves, I saw again, he's still standing there, still in the same place, and he's still staring at me. And what felt kind of flattering a few minutes before now felt creepy.
Yeah.
And I thought, what is this guy doing staring at women in the library? And I've seen every episode of Forensic Files at least 3 times. And so I know a criminal. I know a predator when I see them. And I immediately am sure that this guy is a bad dude with bad intentions. And honestly, pretty smart, because who would suspect a serial killer to be at the library? But I've absolutely tagged him as a total predator. And I'm thinking through like the safety training I've heard before. And I know that you need to walk with confidence and walk with purpose. And so I walk right toward this dude and I'm going to give him the, like, I see you, Buster, look. And I am working myself up step by step until I finally get close enough to recognize him for who he really was. Yeah. Or rather, what he really was, because he was a cardboard cutout of Luke Skywalker with a science fiction book display. And I use that story to illustrate that perspective really does change everything.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Got to get close enough to see what the reality is.
That is so true. And that's the power of a leader, of a mentor. They can help us see things that we are sure are one way differently. And then when we see them differently, the possibilities change, the opportunities change, we change when we're open to new perspective.
So as we start to talk about telling better stories, where would you tell a person to start with that?
To quote our friend Stephen Covey, the best place to start is always with the end in mind. What is the goal of the story? Is it just to connect on a human level with another person? Is it to illustrate a topic or a principle, to teach something? And then back up from there. Who's the person? What do they think about the topic now? And what do I want them to think? And what story can help bridge that gap?
So beginning with the end in mind, are you trying to think about an outcome? Are you trying to think about some kind of a goal? Or are you trying to think about something that you would want a person to leave with? Anything goes. What are we talking about there?
I think it's all those things. I think it is, often you're trying to connect a new team member to the vision of what we're working to accomplish. And so what is a story that illustrates why the work we do matters, not just for us, but for our customers, for their families, for the community? Yeah. Or maybe I want to connect with you on a personal level as we start and nurture a relationship that can lead to partnership and to greater impact together. And so I'm looking for a place of common ground. I don't know if you've ever read Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion.
I read it once a year.
Oh, so good. And in that, he shares the levers of influence. And one of those is likability. And in that context, he's talking about common ground. He's talking about relatability. He's talking about the power of finding a place where I can see that you're like me, like you and I have a shared background in the world of faith-based events and artists, and we are alike in that way. We have relatability and familiarity in that way. And all of a sudden, sort of like the Grinch's heart grew 3 sizes that day, that's how finding that point of connection and common ground grows the connectedness we feel with another person, whether it's someone we want to work with, someone we are leading and teaching. Finding that point of relatability can make all the difference. And it's often through sharing a personal story that helps us relate to one another in that way.
Definitely. So now, I also know that a lot of folks feel very self-conscious about being seen by other people as they're sharing a story like that, and they feel particularly vulnerable. What are some ways that they can be ready for that moment, and find it less intimidating?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple suggestions there. One, on sort of an external level, thinking ahead about your story. What story do you want to tell? How will you tell it? And trying it out a few times. Share it with your friends, share it with your coworkers, share it with a few people, and get the words in your mouth. And it will, what starts as awkward will become more and more comfortable for you. And then on the inside, though, so often whether you're talking about a fear of telling stories and being vulnerable in that way, or just a fear of speaking in front of people in general, kind of the broad fear of public speaking that lots of us feel to one degree or another. To me, the greatest reframe to turn that around is when we are thinking with our ego, when we're thinking about ourselves, we're afraid. I don't want you to think I'm an idiot. I don't want you to think that I am full of myself. I don't want to say the wrong thing. And I worry about that. And it makes me want to play small and to be quiet, because why on earth would I risk that if I don't have to? But the flip side of it is, what if I believe that I truly have something that can help you? If I believe that, then, and I stay focused on that instead of focused on worrying about myself, but I'm worrying about you and how you need help, and I know something that would help you, that brings courage. Ego brings fear, but serving brings courage. And you probably know Seth Godin and are familiar with his marketing wisdom. And he shared a blog post years ago that I've not forgotten about seeing ourselves as a lifeguard. And if someone is in the water struggling, you're not worried. They don't need the greatest lifeguard that's ever been a lifeguard and has their photo in the Hall of Fame. They need someone who's willing to get in the water with them and help. And that's me, and that's you.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the greatest expert there's ever been in your area of expertise. You just have to be willing to get in the water where someone else is and help them by sharing what you've learned.
Oh, you'll be surprised by who comes forward afterwards and said, "That's exactly what I needed to hear today," right? And doesn't that happen frequently?
I hope so. Yeah, it does. Yep.
So the last question that I have about storytelling and telling better stories is, how much do you rely on things like frameworks and structures as you're putting together a story that you're going to present to a group?
I'm so glad you asked that, because, we've all heard kind of the 9-part story framework. And there are places where stories are enormous in films and in television series, and they require that level of development and unfolding. The stories I'm talking about with you, the stories you and I can share, like when I thought there was a creep at the library and it turned out to just be Luke Skywalker. To me, that is, every tellable story centers on a moment of inspiration, discovery, transformation. And all we need to know is what happened before that helps us understand that moment. And then what do we take away from that moment? So it's just sort of before the moment, and after the moment. That's really it. I wouldn't make it more complicated than that.
I love it. The simplicity is really beautiful, and it gives you a nice context, but it also gives you plenty of room to move in. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely.
Well, Lori, this time has flown by, and we're reaching the end of our time. Before we finish, I'd like to have you tell us the kind of people who need to find you for your coaching.
Absolutely. Well, my focus is helping more professional women craft their messages that help them grow their business, grow their career, grow their personal brand, and create the impact in the world they want to make, and help them put some clarity around that, craft presentations that can be used in a standalone keynote or on a podcast interview or on traditional stages, digital stages that just help them level up in their business, level up in their career, and level up their impact. So that's who I work with on a one-on-one basis. And then alongside that, I speak to leadership audiences of leaders who need to be better communicators, who need to understand why it's important to be a better communicator, or want to really learn more and lean into the power of story to teach and lead and influence the people around them.
All right. So if you are a professional woman looking for support in becoming a better speaker and a better storyteller, how can people get in touch with you, Lori?
So my website is speakhercoach.com, and I am most active on LinkedIn.
Very good. That's easy enough. And then opportunities to speak. You're saying you look for organizations, for professional people, leadership teams, executives, and things like that, who are in need of help with their communication skills and abilities.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I do some corporate speaking and presentation and storytelling training, and do keynotes as well about the power of story, about how we can all engage, connect, and inspire our audience better, leaning into some specific principles, regardless of your topic, the setting, or how long you've been speaking. It's not about that. It's about things like authenticity and energy and empathy that really connect us and engage.
I love it. My guest for this program today has been Lori Robertson. You can find her at SpeakHerCoach.com. There's an H in there. For those of you who are looking at the screen, you can see it. For those of you who are listening, it's speak with an H before the E. SpeakHerCoach.com. Lori, I'm hoping that this will just be the first of many conversations. You are welcome to come back anytime that you want to share your own insights and be a little bit more visible to a group of people. But I've really been delighted to welcome you today.
Thank you so much, Franklin. And on behalf of your audience, of One I Am, thank you for the way you encourage and inspire and love on the people you serve over and over through your podcasting, through coaching. It's a gift. And it's clear that you're stepping into your gift to help other people, which is that win we talked about.
Wonderful, Lori. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to Your Own Best Company. If you enjoyed the show, would you do me a favor and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast host? If you really love it, leave me a review or share it with your circles. If you feel like your career is reaching a dead end, or you're feeling a deep sense of dissatisfaction in your work right now, I help people discover their gifts and then find or create new opportunities that are the best fit for their talent, experience, and lifestyle. Email me at coaching@franklintaggart.com for more information. I also help people start, finish, and launch creative projects, and I offer an ongoing marketing mastermind for solopreneurs and freelancers. More information on these programs and services can be found at franklintaggart.com. Thanks again for spending this time with me.